Record. And good afternoon, producer Susan. Warm enough for you out there in State College?
Yeah, I don't like this. It's actually lovely today, but it was a little too hot and humid
Yeah.
this weekend for me.
Well, it's lovely here in New Jersey, but this Thursday, Friday, it's going to be 92 and humid. So,
And yesterday was a very special day.
my birthday yesterday, somebody reminded me it was my birthday. About 50, 60 people reminded me on Facebook it was my birthday. Just trying to forget. All right. And I got a chorus of happy birthdays from a very close relative who enlisted some friends to sing me happy birthday. So I had a chorus of happy birthdays yesterday. All right, but that was yesterday. Today's today. Oh, by the way, did you have any damage from the thunderstorm line of sun that rolled through Pennsylvania yesterday?
It came through Saturday late afternoon, but
Yeah, we
no,
had some people get
fortunately.
killed here. Trees fell
Oh
on
my
people.
gosh.
Yeah. So,
Oh, that's terrible. No,
yeah, yeah.
fortunately, we didn't, but it came through
Okay.
here like between 3 and 4 o'clock on Saturday afternoon.
All right. Well, good. Glad nobody got hurt. All right. Anyway, today is June 8th. It's a Monday, the day after my birthday on June 7th. And we got a bunch of different things to talk about today.
Today's
In
June 8th.
June 8th, rather, June 8th, right. In a follow-up to one of our stupidest things I've heard all week stories with the FIFA World Cup match being scheduled to play in New Jersey in just 5 days. Remember we talked about those $150 train tickets that New
Mhm.
Jersey Transit wanted to charge for the six
Yep,
mile trip from
yep,
Penn Station to MetLife Stadium?
yep.
Well, we'll tell you how many of those tickets have been sold with the first game only 5 days away. In another New Jersey story, we'll tell you about the latest Fortune 500, what I thought was the latest Fortune 500 company to announce that they're moving out of New Jersey, and how many of those large companies have left the state in just the last 8 years. And you just told me that there's another one has just
Yep.
announced today that they're leaving.
Yep.
So
I'm surprised
yeah,
you didn't hear this one because it's a big one.
I didn't hear. Well, we'll talk about that one too. We'll play a clip explaining how Canada's program of free socialized medical care for all residents cost a woman her leg. We've all heard, yeah, the United States only program doesn't have free socialized medicine. Well, we've talked in the past about how UK people are waiting for, yeah, they're waiting for years and years and, for desperately needed surgery, how they're leaving, how they're coming to the US and paying out of pocket for medical care they could get for free if they wanted to wait for 5 years.
Hmm.
Well, the same thing's happening in Canada, and it costs one woman her leg. We'll play a clip that explains how their socialized medicine costs this woman her leg. I don't know if you've seen it, but yeah, if you go online, there's a lot of AI data center propaganda floating around out there.
Hmm.
Have you seen or read any of it? Why,
Some of it.
yeah. Well, guess what? Some of what you might be reading are actually part of a organized propaganda campaign orchestrated by a foreign government, and we'll tell you why they're doing that. Did you know that a lot of that was coming from a foreign government?
No, no.
Well, we'll tell you who and why. Um, and as long as we're talking about AI, if we have time, we'll tell you about some simple and fun things you can do with AI yourself for free. Um, Another one, if you weren't already sure, remember we talked about the SAVE Act about the voter ID, a photo ID for, and perhaps improve your citizen. If you weren't sure why that SAVE Act was good or not, and it hasn't passed yet, we'll give you a couple of recent examples of voter registration fraud and how the SAVE Act would have prevented it. Given the continued organized violence that has been taking place outside the Delaney Hall ICE detention facility in Newark, we'll give you a different perspective on why what is happening might be more than just a protest. And I think you said there's not a lot of press coverage out in your
No,
part.
not at all. I haven't, other than this show, I haven't heard about it at all.
Okay, well, it's a daily occurrence here, and we'll tell you a take on why it might be more than just a protest. We'll tell you about a company that is testing and developing nuclear reactors that can fit on the back of a flatbed trailer and why they could be the answer to the growing power production and transmission needs of AI data centers. Were you aware of that you can get a nuclear reactor in the back of a flatbed
Oh
trailer?
yeah, we spoke about this a couple months ago about like these quote neighborhood nuclear reactors.
Well, but
Is
they
that about
weren't
the
a
same
thing yet. We
size?
talked about we talked about how that they're talking about them. They're spending money to develop them. Well, guess what? They're already pretty far down the road, and we'll tell you which company is doing them and why it could be the solution for AI data centers.
Mhm.
And our taxpayer relief shot is international this week. It comes from Australia, where a 75-year-old man shoots and kills an intruder who had already stabbed both him and his wife and who had returned to finish the job. but he was in for a surprise. All right, so let's back up. Remember, a few weeks ago, we told you how New Jersey Transit, with the backing of the governor, had decided that the normal price for a round trip ticket from Penn Station in New York and Manhattan to MetLife Stadium, just across the river in New Jersey, um, which is where the New York Giants play. The
Mhm.
normal round trip ticket from Penn Station to MetLife Stadium is $13.
Mhm.
Well, they announced that they were going to raise that $13 to $150 per trip for each of the 8 days that there would be a FIFA match at MetLife Stadium. And it was going to be reservation only. You had to get a reservation. And then we talked about how Governor Hochul of New York had cut the legs out from them by, well, there were two things. Then first, a couple of big corporate sponsors came in and said, "Hey, we'll subsidize that," because they're going to say, "Well, we're trying to raise $48 million to offset the cost of our security that we're going to have to be providing for the World Cup. And we need to charge $150 per ticket." And by the way, that were 8 days, 48 million. That works out. They were hoping to raise $6 million a day from the train fares. Well, then Governor Hochul came out and said, "Hey, we got buses that run from the Port Authority bus terminal right at the
Mhm.
mouth of the Lincoln Tunnel, and we'll take you over and back for 20 bucks."
Yep.
And we also talked how it'd be cheaper for a couple rather than pay the $150 to just rent an U to rent a limo or an Uber to go back and
Yeah.
forth to get anyway. Well,
Last time I was at Giant Stadium, which is a few years ago, we also went we went across it was a night game, so we spent the day in Lower Manhattan at the World Trade Center. We took the ferry from Jersey City,
uh-huh,
which is also available from Hoboken,
right.
and it's 250 one way or $5 round trip. Now, granted, that was a couple years ago, so prices may have increased, but yeah, $5 round trip on
Yeah.
the ferry.
Well, so let me tell you where we are. So even though a couple of corporations stepped in and said, "Hey, we'll donate some money to cut the fare," so they cut the fare to $98. But with the first game being played this Saturday, do you know what percentage of the available train tickets have been sold so far?
Not many, I'm guessing.
Less than 6%, 5.8% of the tickets.
Now, this is interesting though, because you know what else is also happening this week and next week in Manhattan at Penn Station is the NBA Finals.
Well, and game three is tonight at at Madison Square Garden, which
Yeah,
is
so
at Penn
that I mean
Station.
Madison Square Garden, for those not familiar, underneath Madison Square Garden is a major train subway hub from
It's
New
Penn
Jersey,
Station. Yeah. Madison
Penn
Square Garden
Station.
sits on top
And
of Penn Station.
Madison Square Garden, I think the capacity is I want to say 30,000-ish.
Yep, about 30,000. It's a
So, I
basketball arena.
mean, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So between the NBA finals and FIFA happening across the river, I
Yeah.
wouldn't want to be in New York
Well,
this
everybody's
weekend.
hoping, by the way, that it doesn't go to game six, because if it goes to game six is on Saturday night, would be on Saturday night, which is the same night as the first FIFA match, as the first FIFA match. So if there is a game six, it will take place on the same day as the first FIFA match. It's going to be a nightmare.
And I did hear too, and I don't remember which game it was, but the president is expected to attend one of the games, and they already said that
I think it's tonight because the
is
Secret
it
Service
tonight?
is there.
Yeah,
It's
that
tonight, right?
MSG is
Yeah,
don't bother, like don't even try
right.
because
And
of the
by the
Secret
way, just getting
Service.
back to this $98,
Yeah.
we talked about the concept of price volume elasticity, which is,
Mhm.
for those who are not familiar, it means that there's the more you charge, the less you get in terms of passengers.
Yep.
And so there comes a point it's diminishing return. In other words, let's get ridiculous. Let's say you said the train ticket was $500. How many people would pay $500 with a train ride?
Very few.
Zero, zero. Okay.
Because
And
if
if the
you could
train,
afford that, you wouldn't be taking the train.
right. And if the train ticket was $1, everybody would take it, right?
Everybody would do it.
Right. So that's price volume elasticity. And I believe what's happened here, even at the $90 subsidized price, I believe they've screwed themselves because here you are 5 days away from the first game, and you've sold less than 6% of those tickets for $98 a pop. I don't think they're going to get anywhere close to the $48 million
No.
they thought
I
they
think
were
the
going to raise.
$20 is reasonable. The buses is reasonable.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think $20 is reasonable,
Yep.
especially if they're going to add a couple extra trains just to handle the volume of people.
Yep. So, and by the way, I think the bus might be quicker because you come through the Lincoln Tunnel and you're basically, when you come out of the Lincoln Tunnel in Jersey, you basically can see MetLife Stadium.
Yeah.
It's a quick straight shot. All right. So let's talk about corporations moving out of New Jersey, and then you can give the update.
Yeah.
So last week, Samsung USA, Samsung North
Mhm.
America, well, wait, last year, I believe it was last uh, October, Samsung announced with great fanfare that they were moving their North American headquarters to Englewood Cliffs, New Jersey. 1,000 people. Englewood Cliffs, by the way, overlooks the Hudson River.
Yeah.
Um, Last week on Friday, they announced, screw it, we're going to Texas. Now, can you imagine now do you any idea what it's going to cost to pick up the whole corporate headquarters, people, relocation expenses, how onerous it must have been for Samsung to walk away from their new headquarters just 10 months after moving
Yeah.
in?
Yeah.
Right. And one of the reasons, by the way, New Jersey has the highest corporate tax rate in the country. It's 11.5%. And that's on top of your federal corporate income tax. And before you tell us about but here's who's left New Jersey in the past 8 years. Samsung going to Texas. Um, by the way, I apologize. ExxonMobil is on my list.
Okay.
ExxonMobil is moving to Texas after being headquartered in New Jersey for 144 years. Mercedes-Benz already left. Honeywell left. Hertz left. Sealed Air left. So in 2018, which was just 8 years ago, there were 22 Fortune 500 companies headquartered in New Jersey. Today, that number is 15. They've lost 33% of the Fortune 500 companies, primarily because of how expensive it is to do business in New Jersey.
I mean,
And
these are
again, this is
big companies that control a huge part of our market.
right, and they make gobs of money. And guess what? They tell the goose that laid the golden egg.
Mhm.
You cut the goose open and you don't get more eggs. Well, how much New Jersey corporate income tax will these companies be paying after they
Huge.
move?
New Jersey is losing millions of dollars of tax revenue.
Tens of millions of dollars. Tens of million dollars in corporate tax revenue because they got greedy and they jacked their corporate tax rate up to 11.5%. Most states that have a corporate income tax, they're between 4 and 6%. New Jersey is double that at 11.5%. And when you're talking millions and millions of tens of millions of dollars, in the case of ExxonMobil, billions of dollars of taxable
Mhm.
profit,
Yeah. Now
that
Texas is
extra,
going to profit from
yeah. What's 6% of a couple of $1 billion? It's
a
$500
lot.
million dollars. I mean, it's a lot
Yeah.
of money. All right. All right. Let's talk about the downside of socialized medicine, which the press doesn't cover. And here's a really tragic story of a woman in Canada who needed a knee replacement. And here we go.
Canadian woman needed knee replacement surgery. She needed it 6 years ago, but because Canada has a socialist healthcare system, she had to wait and wait and wait and wait and wait. And her injury got worse and worse and worse. Eventually, her number comes up in the lottery. She gets to have her knee replaced, and there was dead tissue. Things had started to turn a little bit because the healthcare system made her wait so long. So they found some dead tissue. They removed the dead tissue, and it was okay. It was successful surgery. And then they just needed to send her to one more specialist to stitch her up. They were going to do that later that day. Problem was, she could not be transferred to that specialist who was at the Winnipeg Health Sciences Center because the Winnipeg HSC didn't have any beds available. So they removed the dead tissue. The surgery had gone pretty well, but this woman had an open wound. She hadn't been properly stitched up. So they had to wait for a bed. And she waited and she waited and she waited. She waited for 8 days at Concordia Hospital, where the first part of the procedure was done. 8 days with an open wound in Canada, not in Cuba, not in Madagascar, not in some far-flung third world country. No, 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 in Canada. Finally, they bring her to the HSC to have her wound stitched up, but it's too late. Now you've got more rotting flesh, and she had to have her leg amputated. This woman, who was scheduled to have what is considered these days to be a relatively routine procedure 6 years ago, had to lose her leg because the government just dragged its feet. The bureaucrats couldn't get her in time. Even after they were able to do most of the job, they couldn't find a bed for her. So she had to lose her leg. A Canadian woman.
So what do you think about that?
That is terrible. That, and you're right. The media doesn't cover. They talk about free healthcare. Well, free's great when you can get it, but you can't always get it.
You can't always get it. And this is just one story out of hundreds. I mean, there's story of people, one guy in the UK was told, well, we think you might have cancer, but we'll need an MRI to confirm it. And then he went to try to get an MRI and he was told there was a 6 month waiting
Yeah.
list to get an MRI. Well, if you think you've got cancer, you want to wait 6 months to figure
No,
out.
you want to get that taken care of as soon as possible.
Right, exactly. All right, let's move on to all this anti-AI propaganda. Let me give you a little background. Remember about 10 years ago, there was all this people getting excited about fracking and we need to stop, we need to ban
Yeah.
fracking. And
Mhm.
you know what it turned out? And this is right from the CIA. Do you know who was behind a lot of that anti-fracking stuff,
Oh,
propaganda?
those government groups.
Russia.
Oh,
And why do you
Russia.
think
Okay.
Russia was pushing anti-fracking propaganda in the United States?
So that we can have resources from them, buy resources from them.
Well, not necessarily buy, but oil and natural gas, and particularly natural gas, are two of Russia's biggest
Yeah.
exports. And to the extent that they could restrict or suppress the production of oil and natural gas in this country, it would raise the global price, right? Because it's a global
Mhm.
market. And
Yeah.
if we're producing less, that means the price. Look what happened to the price of a barrel of oil. It went from
Mhm.
62 to 102, over the Strait of Hormuz. Well, Russia's goal 10 years ago was to make people upset and fight fracking in an effort to try and suppress the drilling of new oil and gas wells in this country because it would raise the price of natural gas, which would directly benefit Russia.
Mhm.
Well, guess which country is behind all this? Not all, but a great amount of this anti-AI data center.
I'm gonna guess China.
China. And why?
Yeah.
Because we are in a race with China to win the AI race.
Yeah.
And I've got a big link. It's too much to read here, but if you can put the link up on the website.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But China is behind a great deal of the anti-data center, AI data center propaganda because
Well,
they're
and we did
trying.
talk last week though about with the data centers and why some people are opposed because of the electricity costs and
Well, if it's done poorly, which is means,
yeah.
they get the same rate as everybody else.
Hmm.
Um, but if it's done correctly, where they either provide their own power or they pay
Hmm.
the higher incremental rate, I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah.
Um, and we'll talk about them getting their own power. Remember, we talked about those portable nuclear reactors? We'll
Yep.
talk about that in a minute. But again, a lot of the anti-AI propaganda you're seeing is being, and China's now doing it from third party journalists in other countries. They're feeding them, they're paying them. They're literally paying journalists in other countries. They're writing the stories for them. They're paying them monies to publish them under their own bylines. But these are stories that are being written and paid for by the government of China, but they're appearing under bylines of other people in other countries. So that's right. So, but before we get serious, by the way, fun with AI. I don't know if you've tried it, but like, on my browser, like Microsoft, I get a free, I think it's
Hmm.
called Copilot.
Yep.
You can do also like I've got a guy that has got a friend who's got a beard like ZZ Top. And I asked him one day, I said, have you ever considered just, trimming it, close cropping it? No, never. So I took his picture and I said to AI, I gave the picture. I said, can you redo this picture showing his beard closely cropped? And 15 seconds later, here's his picture with a closely cropped red beard. And I sent it back to him. His wife saw it and she loved it. Another guy, I got a friend, he drinks bourbon. He's always talking about, good bourbon versus cheap. So I said to AI, I said, make me an ad showing with a bottle of bourbon labeled Rot Gut Bourbon, and then in small print for people you don't care about impressing. And it came up with a beautiful, like a magazine quality ad with
Yep.
a bottle of whiskey labeled Rot Gut Bourbon. 15
Yeah.
seconds.
It is
Um,
both amazing and also terrifying at the same time.
right. Also one time I asked one of them to calculate the number pi to 1,000 decimal places, and it lied to me. After 500 decimal place, it began repeating, and it doesn't happen. And I cross-checked it with another AI, and then I went back to the first one. I said, "You gave me incorrect," and then it admitted to me that it gave me incorrect information. By the way, So don't believe everything you get. Oh,
Yeah.
and by
Oh,
the
yeah,
way, a
definitely
lot of
not.
these things you say on Facebook about, animals coming up to somebody's door and saying,
Yeah.
and follow me, come save my baby, that's all AI generated.
Yep. Yep.
Animals don't do this. A moose doesn't come up to your back door, tap on your door, and ask you to follow it to save their baby. It's all AI generated video.
Yeah.
So I saw one the other day with a
The sad
bear.
thing is so many people buy into this stuff
No,
and it's scary.
I know it's so, folks. And when you see these really cute or unbelievable videos on Facebook or TikTok, they're unbelievable because they're not real. Trust me. It's so easy to come up with a fake, about a moose asking you to come save her baby or whatever. Didn't happen. Didn't happen. All right, so let's move on to the save voter ID and why which hasn't passed yet, but why it's needed. And here's a couple of examples. In the first one in Colorado, one reporter, and by the way, you can request freedom. You can request from your Secretary of State a list of all registered voters in your state, and you'll get it in an Excel format.
Mhm.
And you know that once you have you can sort the columns, right? And one of the columns you can
Yep.
sort is address.
Yep.
So what they did is they simply said, okay, here's a list of our, whatever, 3.2 million registered voters. And the guy just did a sort by address. And then he began scrolling down, looking for clusters showing the same address. Simple thing to do, right? You could do that,
Yep.
right?
Absolutely.
Well, what he found in one 15-month period, he found 99 new people registered to vote in that state, all listing the same two-bedroom apartment as their residence. 15-month period, 99 people registered to vote, listing the same two-bedroom apartment as their address. Do you think all 99 people live at that residence?
I'm guessing probably at the most four people live there.
All right. Now let's go to California. Let's go to California and let's see what this guy, he did the same thing in California. Here's what he found.
As we're outside of a very important place here in California, you'll see it's just home to a porta-john and a giant empty parking lot.
So it's an empty parking lot with a porta-john. That's what he's looking at.
But inside of this empty parking lot is something really important in the state of California. You can see here, we have registered voters. 26 registered voters for this exact location, 100 Sunset Avenue in Venice. 26 registered voters. Right here, according to the registrar and the Secretary of State. 26 people registered to a porta-john and an empty parking lot.
So what do you think of that one?
Yeah.
Do you think we need the SAVE Act?
Absolutely, we do.
All right. And there's another clip I didn't. Maybe we'll do it next week. Where they're homeless people are signing are coming to sign ballot petitions, and they're being given money, and some of them are registering as other people. They're all registering other people, and they said, well, why are you registering as Vicky Walker? You're not Vicky Walker. He said, no, well, guy paid me. He gave me the name. He gave me the money. He had $5 bill, and he gave me this, and he said, go register. So that's what they're doing.
Mhm.
So. All right. How much time we got left?
Oh, we got like 12 minutes.
All right. So let's move on to Delaney Hall, which we talked about last week. That's the ICE detention facility in Newark, where it's been getting increasingly violent. One guy was so severely bit, he had to go to the hospital for stitches. All right. And here's what's happening there.
So let's stop the pretense. This is not about ICE. New Jersey is under domestic terrorist attack. That's what's happening here. These are domestic terrorists who are launching an attack on the state of New Jersey and the city of Newark. This is the federal definition of domestic terrorism. Activities that involve acts dangerous to human life that are a violation of the criminal laws of the United States or of any state and appear intended to intimidate or coerce a civilian population or influence a policy of the government by intimidation or coercion. That is the definition of what is happening in Newark right now. The state of New Jersey needs to defend itself. It needs to defend its citizens. It needs to defend its police. And if they won't do it, the president of the United States needs to do it. So let's stop the.
So what do you think? Is he right?
Yeah, if all that is the violence that's happening there is true, it needs somebody
Yep.
needs to step in and do something.
Yeah. And by the way, many of these people are wearing like Palestinian headdress, the Palestinian
Mhm.
headdress, scarves and whatnot, and they're throwing fireworks. They're throwing soup cans, frozen water bottles. They're biting, they're physically attacking these guys. And as we mentioned last week, a great many are from out of state. In fact, when they arrested 6 people, 5 of the 6 were from out of state. Um, so these are not, and they're well funded. There's thousands of dollars worth of materials and resources and bandages and water and but just being drop shipped to drop shipped on the street corner for these people to use. So I wonder who's paying for all that.
Yeah.
All right. Um, so let's talk about portable nuclear power. There's a company called Radiant Power is developing and testing portable nuclear power plants that can fit on the back of a flatbed trailer. Now, why is this important? Why could that product, if fully developed, be the answer to the rapidly growing electrical demand created by new AI data centers? Well, number one, it reduces the need for additional expensive power purchased from out-of-state providers. We talked last week about when you're a state and you have to buy power from a competing utility out of state, that's much more expensive than the power you generate.
Yeah.
But the other thing people overlook, it eliminates the need to upgrade transmission lines and substations. You know what a substation is, right?
Yeah, this is a smaller cluster of power lines that you see together that
big
where all the
transmission.
big power comes into a smaller power grid.
Well, yeah, you bring in that power at 200,000 volts, and you need to step it down to like 460 volts, and you do that with these big fenced-in areas where they have all these massive transformers. But guess what? If you're adding a big AI data center to near some town, there's a good chance that both the transmission lines feeding that, coming in and out of that substation and the substation itself is not large enough to handle that big increase in power. So one of the opportunities here, if they can get these things to market here, is to simply have data centers purchase a couple of these portable nuclear reactors, put them on site, and generate their own power on site. That way, you're not buying power from out of state. And more importantly, you're not having to upgrade the grid and the substations to carry all that additional power. Makes a lot of sense, doesn't it?
Well, in addition, though, nuclear power is actually very clean and efficient.
Very clean. It's zero. There's no carbon footprint for nuclear power.
Yeah. So you're creating this very clean,
right,
energy efficient power source.
Right. And by the way, it's air cooled. It doesn't need water, so it's air cooled too. So highly efficient. So let's hope. And again, the name of the company is Radiant Power. If you want to Google it, just look up Radiant. Actually, it's Radiant Nuclear. It's radiantnuclear.com. RADIANT. Radiantnuclear.com. It's fascinating, and they hope to have commercially viable units available in the next 12 to 18 months. They've already got working prototypes. They're looking to get Nuclear Regulatory Commission approval, but I think this could be, a wonderful way to do this is to get. And by the way, Elon Musk's solution is to put AI processing in outer space where it's already minus 250 degrees Fahrenheit. They don't need cooling, and you power them with solar energy from the sun. So that's why SpaceX is going to go public in a couple of weeks at a price tag of $75 billion, because SpaceX would be launching these AI data processing centers into outer space, which also makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
All right. Should we go right to our taxpayer relief shot from Australia?
Yeah, we have about 5-6 minutes left.
All right, here we go. Australia.
Husband is being praised for his bravery after shooting an intruder who police say broke in to kill him and his wife. The grandparents are now fighting for life in hospital following the violent and random attack at their northern New South Wales home. Eleni Lambetsos with more.
Keith and Diane Blessing moved to the country for a quieter life. The couple runs a wildlife rescue on their property in the remote town of Torrington, 65 kilometres southwest of Tenterfield, near the Queensland border. But just after midnight, that peace was shattered.
Very rare, I would say. It's certainly not a common occurrence.
A man breaking in, allegedly slashing 72-year-old Di in the chest and 75-year-old Keith in the abdomen. Keith called 000 when the attacker left, but when he came back, that's when the injured husband got his gun and shot the alleged intruder outside the house. Keith then called 000 a second time.
he certainly did his best, obviously under very difficult circumstances, to defend himself and his partner. So it was, quite impressive.
Their daughter Kathy saying they are the most generous and kind people, and that dad Keith is so brave, and she's so proud of him for trying to defend mum.
Bloody great guy, absolutely great husband and wife, and he wouldn't hurt a fly.
Keith and Di flown to Gold Coast Hospital with critical injuries. Their accused attacker, Joshua Dylan Trethaway, is a stranger to the couple, but police allege he broke into the home with the intention of killing them. The 34-year-old is now facing 2 charges of attempted murder. But is...
Well, let me ask you this question. Guy breaks your house at midnight and a knife and he's stabbing you. When seconds count, the police are, even if and these people out in the boonies, if you looked at their house, they're out in the boonies.
As much as Australia is.
Do you think the police could have gotten there before he, remember, he came back to finish the job, right? You think the police would have got there before he finished stabbing them to death?
I mean, he's bleeding. The guy's bleeding out.
The guy's already bleeding out.
10 minutes to live.
Right. And even if the police showed up, he'd have been dead because the guy was there to stab him a second time.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, great taxpayer relief shot. And anything you want to add before we sign off?
Yeah, there was this did make the national news, but that Marine who defended himself against those 3 teenagers who tried to rob him, they picked the wrong guy. Did you see that one?
No, I didn't. Where was that?
It was I can't remember where it was. I actually feel like I want to say it might have been in New Jersey, but I don't recall. But it was a Marine was fiddling around doing something with his pickup truck right out in front of his house. So the whole thing was caught on his Ring camera, and 3 teenagers came up and robbed him. One of the teenagers had a gun, and he put his Marine Corps skills to good use, and his brother came running out to help lend a hand. And
All right, I'll have to look that one up. Or did any of the 3 teens get killed?
No, none of them got killed. They were all arrested, but that was on I did see that on the evening news the other night.
All right, well, I'll look that up. All right, hey, we're running out of time. Anything you want to add before we sign off?
Nope.
All right, folks, thanks for giving up 30 minutes of your time to listen to me ramble on about the things I find interesting and important. If you want to see any of these things, give producer Susan a couple of days and be able to find those story links on the Jerzee Joe website at jerzeejoe.com, which is J-E-R as in Robert, Z as in zebra, E-E, J-E-R-Z-E-E, jerzeejoe.com, no space. If you'd like me to send you any of those links directly or suggest a show topic or have a question, just send me an email to joe@jerzeejoe.com. Just remember to spell Jersey with an R, a Z, and 2 E's. And if you'd like to get on the distribution list for our podcast, just send me an email to joe@jerzeejoe.com, and I will make sure you get the podcast in your mailbox once a week. And with that, producer Susan, if you got nothing else, we'll
by the
sign
way,
off.
it was Oxon Hill, Maryland.
Sorry, I will
Marine veteran in Oxon Hill, Maryland.
All right. All right, Susan, thanks for your help, and I will talk to you next week. You take care.
All right.
Bye-bye.